Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to Elite Physique University. I'm John Gorman, your host. You got Jason Theobald back in the house as usual. Jason, what's going on, man? How are you?
Doing all right. Just got done with some legs. It's been a busy day. My boy, Aiden, the 16-year-old, has a soccer tournament in Indianapolis tomorrow. So I'm trying to do client stuff, work, pack, podcast. I got another podcast at 7:30. Just a busy day. My youngest comes tonight. He's going to sleep here because we got to get on the road tomorrow. It's my weekend with him too. So just some busy stuff, man. But otherwise, it's a good Thursday.
Yeah, man. Same thing with me. I haven't got to work out yet, but still knocking out a few straggler emails, getting ready to train after, and then back to work, taxes and all that stuff, which is a sore spot with most of us. We don't want to think about and talk about, but
I
that's
don't even want to share my life. I told you, and that's
I
fine.
know.
Like, dude.
It's always a mess. I don't care who you are. If you own multiple businesses, it's always just sucks. But other than that, man, good with me. Anything new with you this week?
Man, the only thing I really can think of to talk about, there's not a whole lot new, is the PEC, the Physique Education Collective. That'll be held in Nashville, 21st, 22nd. That's a Friday. It starts Friday night. We go into Saturday with 6 more presentations. It's a pretty packed panel, lots of good info. And if you are interested in that, it's in Nashville. It's going to be a good weekend. Broadway's wide open. So we're going to get out Saturday night. We're going to do some training together. It's going to be a good atmosphere. Go to physiqueeducationcollective.com and you can sign up there.
I'm going to go ahead and link that in the show notes so you guys can just go right there and just click on it. It'll take you right there. So boom, got it. Yeah, man. For those of you watching on YouTube, you can see this. This is the only thing new. We dropped Fruity Flakes. It's a whey isolate, tastes just like Fruity Pebbles. This one took us a while to get perfect, exactly right. I know there's been a lot of people that have come out with like Fruit Loop flavors and things like that. It's just really hard to get close. But man, we had so many people asking for it. And I thought, you know what? We've got like 7 different flavors of protein. Let's go ahead and try this out. So we did, and it's been a huge hit. We got it right. So if you guys want to check that out, the link is there. But we're not here to try and promote a bunch of other stuff. We're here to talk about training intensity today. And Jason, this is something that I think sometimes for guys like us, or even some of our listeners that are advanced from doing this a long time, there's still going to be some nuggets in here and some words of wisdom. But especially for the coaches on the show, there are going to be times where you've said it before, man, how many times can we talk about carb cycling? Well, the answer is endless because there's always new people that come along that need to learn about these different things. So, that's our topic today is training intensity and even some frequency in there. So let's kind of break this down, man. I just want to start off by saying that training intensity, how hard you train, I think for a lot of people, they need to understand it includes a lot more than people think. It's not just training hard, but training hard and smart. And I'm a big believer in the longer people train, the better they should actually get at understanding intensity and training, because we've talked about you multiple times on the show, and I'll use other people as examples as we go. But I mean, you really figured your groove out, I would say, starting 2000. I mean, you always were good, but starting out 2016 until now, you've gotten better with intensity techniques, correct?
Definitely. Yeah. I always say I've been a late bloomer and a slow bloomer, and I'll be honest with you, I think some guys figure it out faster than I did. I really wish I would have figured it out earlier, but it just took me time, like I went through all the progressive overload where that was my only focus, but a lot of times my reps would get shitty and, the focus wasn't even on the target muscle anymore. And, I finally, just due to joints and age and thinking, man, I better get smarter about this. I started to kind of find my groove, and in terms of, thinking about tempos, and we can go over that, and thinking about the execution and full range of motion and, just pulling weight back and really feeling the target muscle work and then getting stronger from there. I basically restarted over at one point, and worried only about the target muscle doing the movement. And that was huge for me. It's your ego gets placed at the door. I usually have one of the better physiques in the gym, but I'll be honest with you, I'm definitely not the guy lifting the most weight by any means.
Yeah. And one thing that I do want to point out, I believe there's really stages of muscle gain that people go through as they get more advanced. You're one that I think of, Jason Wells, our good friend that we both know. He's another one. He sent me some pictures that were only like 8 to 12 weeks apart. and he wasn't dieting. And I think you saw those maybe when we were
did.
down in Tampa.
It was awesome.
And, a lot of people think, well, he really was hammering the L-Carn, injectable plus adding in the oral on top of it. But he really wasn't doing a lot of other stuff different. And I tried to tell him, I said, listen, man, I know all these little things add up, but here's what's happening is you've gotten to the point, he's like 4 years in, you've got to the point that you understand the lifts and training so well, it literally starts to become an art form, because we're all athletes, right? And I tell people all the time, if you shoot free throws and you shoot them consistently over time, you should become better at shooting free throws until you get to the point where you're kind of stalled out. But it's the same thing with training. People should get better with understanding how to train with intensity and purpose better. So I see people go through a period where they're not just weightlifters anymore. They become bodybuilders in the sense that they train to the point to where their body starts to really bloom more than it was before. Now, have you seen that as well?
Oh, 100%. I mean, a lot of people get the benefit of these seminars and things we do. Like Jason's trained with you, but he trained with me too. And, I think those things add up, and I didn't have that luxury really. I trained with a bunch of other amateurs just like me. I never really had that IFBB pro or that high level guy that had 20 years under their belt kind of show me things. So I definitely think that that's what helped Jason, and hopefully he basically, having other coaches and guys that are at that point show you, and gals too, will really help. So yeah, I think even for myself, as I started to, I'm never going to say that progressive overload isn't important. It is. You've got to get stronger. But there's other areas, and I know my brain was stuck on just more than one of the, just that one for so many years. And it's not that I didn't get good, but my density, even my leanness stuck around better. And I think it's just because all around my training sessions are more intense.
Yeah, I agree. And let's talk about something else. Let's kind of lay the foundation here. Let's talk about the difference in most weightlifters, or what I would say, not really gym rats. I hate that term because it sounds like a negative term, but just kind of like gym rats and things of that nature, and bodybuilders, or even the difference in like some power lifters and bodybuilders. And there's a reason why we all look a little bit different. So, some people, when they first start with me, I will see them like they're training what they consider hard. Their intensity is on a scale of 1 to 10. And we'll talk about that. They're going to feel like they're training a 10 out of 10. And then I invite them in to train with me, and they are training hard, but they're just plowing through the reps, and they're pushing hard until they get to the point where like their form's all fucked up and their face is ugly, which is fine, but they're not really making the progress on the lift like they should be. And that's what a lot of weight trainers go through. They hit the point where they hit failure, but they can't really move the weight like they should. Then you look at advanced bodybuilders, it's more slow and controlled. But Jason, what's the difference in the look of the physique between most weightlifters that have been in their training 10 years and they're just weightlifters versus a bodybuilder? Like, you see a huge difference in their physique, right?
Yeah. I mean, so with a bodybuilder, if they know what they're doing, they're training, for hypertrophy, but also that blood flow type of hypertrophy, what do you call it? Hyperplasia, or I'm blanking right now.
Just cell swelling is what I call it. Yeah.
And so you've got both type of hypertrophy going on in a bodybuilder's training. So a lot of times they look rounder. They are going to look denser. They are going to look leaner than your average gym rat. And, that is a very high product of their training. Again, the focus is not just on 1 rep maxes and getting stronger. That's powerlifting, and that's great. I have powerlifter friends, and that's what they love to do. You've dabbled in it yourself. But those guys generally, and not all of them, I mean, there's been some freaky looking powerlifters, but generally speaking, a lot of those guys look more big guys you see on a farm, but not really the more aesthetic, cut, round look that you see from bodybuilding training. And I think as you progress, you learn tempos, you learn intensity techniques, you learn to slow down, you learn to feel the weight and only the target muscle being pushed. And even though the weight may be less, your intensity and your intent with each rep is more focused and more intense. So the training itself is more intense overall than, say, an intermediate. Advanced bodybuilders can get more out of the same weight than, say, an intermediate can, like more muscle fiber recruitment. And that's what you want.
Yeah, 100%. And there's definitely a big difference in the way powerlifters look, and even powerlifters that are bodybuilders as well, because there's a lot of people, and it got real popular. Cliff Wilson and I used to talk about this a lot at the summit whenever a Q&A would come up. One of the big changes he switched out of, and myself as well, is we used to dabble with a lot of the big three movements, squat, bench, and deadlift. And we would try and program so people could do powerlifting in the off season, but still train and keep their quote unquote accessories in and still try to look like bodybuilders. And what we noticed with a lot of our clients and a lot of people that came to us that were preaching this, when it came time to diet back down for a show, they hadn't really made a lot of progress. And I know two really well-known people. I'm not going to say who they are. I prepped one and Cliff prepped one. They actually didn't look as good because they had switched over to that and took 4 years off, and they came back on stage and they didn't have the same look, and they actually looked a little bit smaller. So my thought process, and his as well, we just had a seminar this weekend in Iowa, so we talked about this. So our thought process was they're not really feeling the muscle. They're training, they're chasing a logbook,
Yep.
training percentages, and they're chasing that, and they're not really training like bodybuilders. So I want our listeners to understand this is a bodybuilding podcast. We're not talking about who has the highest fucking bench or squat or deadlift. We're talking about who looks like a bodybuilder. So that I kind of want to get all that out of the way to kind of lay the foundation of our talk today. One of the questions that I do get a lot is, what's an RPE scale? Like, what does the rated perceived exertion scale mean? Jason, is that something that you ever use with your clients, like a 1 to 10 scale?
Okay. I do. I actually use it a lot, actually, in my hormonal cases. You know,
okay, yeah,
women or men have issues because I got to rest them. So I'll say, hey, it's an RPE of 7, no higher, or then I'll just let them know, okay, if you don't get that or you struggle, let's just say we stop 3 reps shy of what you feel like would be your failure. Is it an exact science? Of course not. It's your own governor. You know, it's your own feel of what would be what's your 10, what's your 9, what's your 7, what's your 8, but at least it gives them something to work with. Do I use it when people are healthy? Sure. I still have programs where I program it in, but it's not as often as like some other people. I have some programs that I use specifically that has it when I'm trying to control recovery really well. I don't use it as much with my ped people, but I do use it. What about yourself?
Yeah, I use it as well to give people kind of an idea. For most of my natural athletes, just kind of a general rule of thumb, I'll tell people, and it's all different, but I'll tell people, hey, listen, if you're doing, 5 sets on the chest press for chest, do the first 4 sets an RPE of 9. So maybe you do it and you've got 1 rep left. And then your last set, go ahead and hit absolute failure, a 10 out of 10, to where you can't push anymore unless I walked up and spotted you and got you 1 more rep. And I think a lot of people don't use the RPE scale, but I like it because I'm actually a pretty big fan for bodybuilding to go in and go off of how your body feels and don't chase a logbook and chase numbers. And that's just the way that I feel works best. So I do use that with my clients. I do want to ask you to kind of give your example. What's your example of failure, like a 10 out of 10? And what's extreme failure? Like what would go beyond that for you? Is that something that you ever talk about with clients?
Yeah, we have that discussion, or I'll write it in the notes. So for me, failure set would be where you have reached mechanical failure and can't do a full rep, full range of motion rep any longer. You can get some partials in, but you can't do a full rep anymore. That would be failure. Beyond failure, if you have a spotter, then it can be forced reps. If you don't, then that's when you can use other intensity techniques like partial reps, like I talked about, just eking out reps that aren't full. Or you can use rest pauses where you rest 5 seconds, really deep breaths to oxygenate, and then try to go again till failure, mechanical, and then repeat that 1 more time. But that's helping you get beyond failure. So there's techniques to do it, whether you have a partner or whether you don't. That's how I list it. I don't know what you do, but that's how I explain it.
100% the exact same. And then, we've got what I would consider beyond failure, and that's when you've got a spotter. And I do want to talk about this when it comes to natty versus enhanced. If you and I are on the chest press and I get to where I mechanically fail and I hit a 10 out of 10, but we're in a cycle where we're just pushing beyond for a short amount of time, and you assist me and maybe I get 2 or 3 more, and they're just the most brutal, painful reps. And we used to see a lot of that back in the day, like a lot in the 90s and early 2000s. You don't really see that preach very often anymore, but that's what I grew up on. And that's what I saw a lot of people doing. And when someone's assisted, kind of like you said, you don't really use it as much with your assisted folks. Assisted folks can recover a lot faster, obviously. So we see a lot of natty folks doing it, and they're burning out. Kind of explain what these extreme techniques can do if people do them too long.
Yeah.
And then we'll kind of talk about deloads a little bit later on.
Right. So, people will get into training, and they'll have a little bit of education. Let's say they're intermediate, and they may try to do these types of, they may try to do rest pauses with every set. Well, 9 out of 10 after 3 to 4 weeks, you're gonna burn out. So that is gonna overreach you, especially if you're a natural athlete. So what might be nice is to only do forced reps for your last set of each exercise. If I think someone's recovery is even poorer, I might only have them do it per one time per body part in the whole workout.
Yeah.
Where they do forced reps. Where they do, rest pauses. So, recovery is going to be way different. And, that is one of those things where if a natural athlete starts to, this can happen to someone enhanced, but if a natural athlete starts to, sleep poor, digestion goes to shit, all those different things, it's time to pull back, and whatever you did program or what you're doing for yourself, it got you to an overreaching point probably quicker than you should have within your training cycle. So then you back off and go another direction. But I've found a sweet spot for naturals is, anywhere from the last set to have those rest pauses, or drop sets are also another way to do it. And, if it's someone who's maybe had issues with recovery in the past, or I know it, then it might only be, if they have 4 sets, of four exercises for chest, they might only get one of those. It might say on their instructions, pick one exercise and go, beyond failure with this technique, and then move, and then you're done with that type of stuff. So recovery is huge, and it's different in all athletes.
Yeah. And a lot of people don't realize, to get to that point of overreaching, when you just feel like hammered dog shit, like that's the best way to just kind of describe it. If you look up hammered dog shit, that's overreaching. Right. And a lot of people think, well, I don't want that, but it's not a bad thing. When you get to that point, I systematically have my clients get there. We've talked about on other episodes. I'll have them overreach, and that's where they take their volume and their intensity and they raise them as high as we can. Right. And what that does is that leads to that point that you were talking about. And then the next thing you know is they need a deload. So they let cortisol drop, they let their body and their joints recover in their CNS, and they feel better coming in. And then you go work on getting stronger or better at the lifts, or all of the things combined. So overreaching and feeling like that's not a bad sign. And sometimes, Jason, I think people can just go by feel. Are you cool with that? Just kind of going by feel and taking a day or two here off once they feel like that? Or do you like to schedule deloads for people?
I really like to watch feedback. So that way I'm not too rigid on it. I had actually someone today, talk about, they just feel their legs feel super heavy. Yeah. They're getting up in the morning and they just don't really want to do anything. Yeah. And, I had the block scheduled out till I think May 14th, but I was like, let's just change let's change directions. I put them on 4 days training, dropped the RPE to 8. I'm just going to see how it goes for 4 weeks. If I need to give them a full break, after a week, if they're still not better, then I may just give them a full week off, or I may say, just drop your RPE to a 5. Let's go in and do a little pump and get out. It just depends, and basically how driven down someone is. Are they just not sleeping good? Are they just really tired in the morning? Or is now digestion messed up too? All those different things kind of lead into how aggressive my deload is. So I don't generally program one in, but I will tell you this, the people I do program them in, generally they're women who have shown me via labs that every time we push, their cortisol rises to an unhealthy level. So at this point, I'm just like, all right, every 5th week you deload. Like, it's not even an option. We just do it. And we put in more cortis that week, and we just take care of it. And I have women that need that. But I found it out through labs and through working with them. It's not something that I do right off the bat. So,
yeah, I do want to talk about a couple other intensity techniques. One thing, and I've made multiple posts on this, I don't think we've talked about it on the show much, there is a pretty cool technique, and it's been studied a lot, and that's using forced eccentrics. And a lot of time, you really need a workout partner or a spotter for that. But it's something that I think if people want to give this a shot, you do it for a few weeks. And really, what you can do is we'll use the chest press for an example, right? A forced eccentric's the lowering portion of the chest press machine, right? You push up, that's a concentric, you're contracting. On the way down, that's the eccentric, right? And the elongation of the muscle. And what happens is a lot of people think, well, I'll just slow that down to get more eccentric muscle damage. And eccentric muscle damage can be huge, right? It's a huge part of growth. And a lot of people don't tap into that. They get mostly concentric. But what people don't understand is the lowering of the chest press, for example, it needs to be harder than the concentric. So what do? You have a partner come in, and Jason, say you and I were pushing right now, and I'm pushing up on my rep on the chest press, and I squeeze for a couple seconds, and then you push back against me, and I have to fight it. So what happens is we're trying to make the eccentric, the lowering portion, harder, and it causes a massive amount of muscle damage. But you have to be careful with that, because if you do it too much, it will definitely overreach you. So I like to program that in for people that have a weak body part, and to try that from time to time, but just don't do it too often. And you really do need a spotter, and you need to make sure that it's harder than the concentric. You can't just slow down your normal. It can't be just the normal weight and you slow it down on the way down. It needs to be pushed. You have to fight against it, not just the weight. University of Tampa did quite a few studies on this, and I first heard about it in 2015. And it was pretty cool. So give that a shot if you guys want to try that. I can't think of any other intensity techniques. Do we talk about supersets at all?
No, and we haven't talked about drop sets. I mean, they might know what they are, but that's another way.
Go ahead, man. Go ahead. Let's give our listeners.
At the end of your set, you take it to mechanical failure, which again, you can't do a full range of motion rep. And I challenge you there to really, really push yourself and figure that out. A lot of times people think they can't do another rep, and they can. And, I fight with this too still as an advanced bodybuilder. And I believe that on the rep on where it says true mechanical failure, really dig is what I'm saying. So once you hit that point, in a drop set, you basically don't rest. You drop the weight. So it's easier to do this on obviously pin loaded machines, or if you have a partner stripping the weight, you can get up and strip it, but you're resting a little bit. I mean, it still works, but it's not the same. So I would do these on pin loaded if you train on your own, like myself. And what you do is you drop the weight. You might drop it 2 plates, or 2 holes, 3 holes, whichever works for you, and try to get into a range where you can try to get another 3 to 6 reps, pull the weight down again, and go again. You can do that 2 times. You can do it 3 times. The more you do it, the more you tear down the muscle. So just, be aware that is an intensity technique. It works great, but use them sparingly. Don't do drop sets every freaking set. If you're able to do drop sets every freaking set, then you're probably not truly getting to mechanical failure. You might think you are, but you need to rethink how intense are you really training, and how much are you really pushing when that set is scheduled to be a full failure set.
Yeah. And man, I'll tell you, the drop set that just hammers me, that I just really feel well, is doing side laterals with dumbbells, and literally you just have the rack to yourself, and you're doing 30s, you get like 15 to 18, and then you drop down to 25s and 20s, and you just go all the way down. By the time you grab the 5s, your damn hands are numb, and it's just brutal, and you're making the ugliest face in the world. But yeah, I do see a lot of new people see that, or they read about these techniques, and they do, like you said, and they end up doing it way too much. They end up getting fried. So take Jason's advice there. Don't do that. And then supersets. That's something everybody, I feel like most of our listeners understand what a superset is, but I see a lot of people, their whole workout becomes a superset. And listen, if you're in there trying to train in 20 minutes and get in and out, cause you're an old fat fucker like me, and you're just trying to stay in shape, and you're probably training at RP of 8, and you're just moving, and you're in and out in 30 minutes because you've got a podcast. Like, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about people that are trying to create their best physique and make progress. So give people an example of like maybe your favorite superset, Jason, and then how often to use those.
My favorite superset right now, it's kind of hard to explain, but you do lat pull downs, kind of leaning back a little bit. And so you're wanting to put the stress more on your upper back and your width. So if you lean back and do it wrong, that actually puts more of the tension up on like the teres major, teres minor. And then I go and do this like little pull down with the D handle, but I'm pulling kind of down to my nose, not to my chest. And that's hammering that part under the armpit. And so I'll shoot for 12 reps on each. I do take it to mechanical failure. But generally speaking, I don't do any forced reps or drop sets or any, because the fact of the matter is that is an intensity technique in itself, running a superset. And that would be the only one on back that I usually do. Shoulders, I like cable upright rows using a rope, and then immediately go into bent over dumbbells hitting your rear delts. Fires up all heads, especially the medial and the rears. I really like that one. Again, I shoot for around 10 to 12 each time. If I can go up in weight, I will. And, continue to hit like a top set. That's one of my better PRs if I can.
Yeah.
So those are a couple that I like on supersets, but there's a slew of them you can do, obviously.
Oh yeah, there's all kinds. Like you can even pair together different body parts, which is not really what we're talking about here, like biceps and triceps. You could do that for time.
Definitely. To blow up your arms, definitely.
Yeah, I think my favorite really, like if I'm gonna do it at the end of the workout, my favorite is flies with a cable and then push-ups right after, and I'll hammer out 4 sets like that and just fill it with blood. But sometimes I do that to start the workout. If I need to get some blood in there, I need to get things going, I'll do that in the higher rep ranges. So that just seems to really light me up. Then the rest of my chest workout is just money. Let me talk about this too. Let's talk about selecting exercises for your training, because that ends up being tied to your intensity. So
yes, it does.
I've got clients, and you're probably the same. Like some people have been following a certain plan that they've gotten somewhere, or it's like we talked about earlier, it's based around squat, bench, and deadlift, or someone else is doing their programming, I'm doing their nutrition, and they're putting down something like, you need to do pull-ups every back workout, because that's what a lot of people say. If you want a big back, you have to do pull-ups. But if you don't fucking feel pull-ups worth a shit and you're spending a lot of time doing pull-ups, my point is, what are your thoughts on selecting exercises for your training? Are you big on certain exercises, or do you like to go by what that client feels the most when they train that body part and just focusing on that? Or maybe even for you yourself over the last 4 or 5 years?
So I feel like you should do the exercises that you feel the most. I know somebody out there created some meme or just put it out there years ago that you should be doing the exercises you hate the most.
Right.
Well, sure, I guess, whatever, but I don't do that shit. Like I do the exercises that I can feel and I can isolate the muscle, plain and simple. And if I get into something and say I did it 8 months ago and I start doing it and I'm like, man, I'm not really feeling where I want this to feel, I go fucking do something else that I can feel.
Right.
So, I'll be honest with you, my training since 2016 has gravitated more and more to machines because I'm by myself. I really don't like training with someone because it's too time consuming usually.
Yeah.
They don't show up on time. They're late. And if I'm training, I'm timing all my intro, all this shit. I just want to start. So I generally train by myself. So I've gravitated to a lot of machines because I can do most intensity techniques on them. Usually they fit my body really well and I can feel the muscle. And so, yeah, I'm a big proponent in doing what you feel. If a client of mine tells me they aren't feeling something, I don't say suck it up. I might try to help them with cues. Like I'm big on, putting in cues if someone's struggling with something. But yeah, I don't subscribe to that. Do the ones you hate. I subscribe to do the ones you feel the most and then get really, really good at it. You know what I mean? Like Michael Jordan didn't stop shooting free throws his whole entire career. I mean, he kept trying to get better and improve his release and improve his form and improve his, eye-hand coordination, all of it. And it's the same with training. I mean, I find sometimes chest presses that I love and I'll do that fucker all year. I won't even change it out. And I'm just trying to get better at it. Maybe I need to sit a little further from the seat. Maybe I need to angle my back. Maybe I need to drop my elbows in, drop them or push them up. I tinker and find like the best groove to where it's just all chest or whatever I'm working. And that's when you really start to advance as a bodybuilder rather than just a gym rat or a weightlifter.
Yeah, another analogy I think of, because we both love business. We love business damn near as much as we love bodybuilding and physique enhancement. Yeah, there's a lot of people that say, focus on your weaknesses, improving those, and I believe just the opposite. Why not focus on your strengths and not worry so much about your weaknesses? So if I'm trying to improve myself and I can't write worth a shit, do I need to go spend a bunch of time learning how to write and put out copy? When I'm really good at doing videos, maybe I should put videos out instead and I ain't fucking worry about the writing. No, that's just an example.
Yeah.
And I think the same, I agree with everything that you just said about exercises. So to our listeners out there, we wanted to put that out. Maybe you don't focus so much on the logbook and you go off a feel and you don't spend time doing shit that Cliff Wilson, I brought him up numerous times because I just spent the whole weekend with him doing a seminar. He brings this up all the time. He goes, I cannot feel the bench press worth a shit when I train.
I can't either. I don't do it.
So why should you guys ever spend time on it? Right. Yeah. I mean, you know what? You're an example. You and Cliff both had weak chests.
Yeah.
And now you've brought them up a ton. And how much do you bench at all, Jason?
I never bench.
Right.
I use
spend time on it
and dumbbells because that's where I feel it. All machines and dumbbells. And once I started doing that, I could actually feel the body part work. When I was busy trying to get, a big bench, it was all my triceps. I mean, they're massive. It was all my shoulders, they're big. I can bench press now way lighter and get my chest to fire. But I'm just like, why? When I can, when most guys get hurt on that, I'm 43. It's tough on my shoulder joints. I'm more susceptible to a tear. Why not just stick with machines that I can feel right away? So, and I can go heavier on.
No, I agree 100%. You know what, man, this was a fun, quick episode. I like this talk. I wanted us to do this because we all get people that just need this. Like we've all got people that are still new or they're only 2 or 3 years in that they need to hear this stuff. And I think sometimes it's worth us taking the time to kind of go back and reiterate what, a lot of this stuff is basic stuff for us, but to a lot of our listeners, maybe it's a good reminder of, hey, I need to really start to think more about my training and my intensity. So like if you guys ever have questions, hit us both up. We've got our emails are in the show notes. I do that every single episode. Email myself or Jason, or if you ever want to check out any of the stuff from our podcast, whether it's products or our guests, we always have that stuff in the show notes. So I wanted to make sure and remind people of that. And finally, if you haven't left a review, we're well into the 400s now. We haven't asked for reviews a lot lately. We just hate asking you guys all the time, but if you haven't left a review, please go leave a review and just tell a friend because we're going to continue to put these out. I would like to get us to 100. I think this is episode like 57, and we take our time because we're very busy. We run multiple businesses, but hit us up, send questions in. We're going to do another Q&A coming up soon. And if you guys have a guest that you want to have on the show, let us know. Like we're all about that. I did want to tell people though, that are expecting the seminar from Tampa Q&A. I am working on that. It just didn't turn out as well with the recording like I thought. We had 5 people on the panel, myself, you, Lauren, we had Will Grazione and Dr. Yeah. We had, everyone was on there and I was just like, man, it didn't come out very well. So I'm still working on that. I'm not an expert, but if not, we'll figure that out. Maybe we'll just have all them back on the show. We'll do a Q&A with all of us. So Jason, you have anything else that you want to add, man?
Well, in closing, I guess, I brought up tempo, so I guess I should have just explained.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
If you're not familiar with it, it's basically the speed at which you do your reps. So, a tempo that I prescribe sometimes to people would be a 3-second negative or eccentric, the eccentric, whatever you want to call it. I might have someone then pause in the hole for just 1 second. And what I want them to do is think about at that pause, only firing then the muscle that they're trying to train out of the hole. And by pausing for a second, you kind of let your brain have a second go, okay, now I need to just push only with the pecs. Now engage them. I might have you do a 1 second up. So it's a more explosive concentric. And then I might have them, squeeze for 2 seconds. So it's going to slow down the speed of your rep, but it's going to be way more deliberate. It's going to add intensity immediately. You aren't going to be able to go as heavy, but you're going to learn to train the muscle that you're intending by taking your time. And you can do a bunch of different tempos. You can do a 2-2-2-2. You can, do 1-2-1-2. I mean, different things, but I like to slow that eccentric down a lot of times and program that 2-second squeeze and kind of get that mind muscle connection really, really learned. And then at times, once they are good, I might just say, all right, take away the tempos. Now they move a little bit faster. You can move a little bit more weight, but now their body is basically primed to continue to fire the muscle. So it's like, take a step back, go lighter, use some tempo, especially if you're a weak body part, start over, really retrain those movements, and then remove the tempos. Don't go speeding then, where weightlifters just worry about pounding out reps. Keep the control, but you don't have to worry about the tempo. And now you can build within when the muscle's firing.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. I'm glad you picked that up. I should have had that in the show notes. I do know one thing I've noticed when I've told my clients, use 4 seconds down the eccentric. Yeah. So if we're talking about chest press again, 4 seconds on the way down, explode on the way up and squeeze, for 1 to 2 seconds. What I have noticed with people is it's taught them to be patient, to become patient. And I've had a lot of people, especially when I first started, they're like, it just takes so long. I'm in the gym for so long, or each set takes so long. I'm like, listen, you've got to be fucking patient. Bodybuilding, it's a long ass time. Like, you're going to do this shit for 20 years. All right.
And it's going to burn, but it's supposed to, it's going to burn more. Like your set now goes from 15 seconds to over 35, 45, 50-second set. So the intensity's there. There's more time under tension, right? All these things have been proven to improve muscle size and roundness. So yeah, it's harder. It takes longer. It hurts more, but that's the fucking point.
Yeah. And probably the last thing that I want to say, and then we can shut it down, is remember, we're talking about improving your physique. I don't do any of these techniques hardly at all. And my physique has not changed in 5 years. That should tell you right there I do everything that goes against what we're saying, and I'm okay with it because I'm not trying to grow. I'm just trying to maintain my physique. If I wanted to try and grow, I would do everything we're talking about on the podcast. So think about that. If you're not doing the stuff the way we're talking about, you're training like I am, you're probably stalled out too. Your physique is not going anywhere. And if you're like me and you're okay with that, then that's fine. So I just wanted to point out, it actually takes a lot to get your body to grow. And some of this stuff we talked about today, that's your bread and butter. That's what we want you guys to focus on. So, all right, man, you said you got another podcast after this, right? Is that tonight?
7:30, and I still got to pack for Indy. So I'm going to try to get whatever. I got 12 new emails in my inbox, and we've been on here 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Crank those out, going to pack a little bit, and then I'll be right back at it at 7:30, man.
Yeah, man. All right. Well, we always appreciate you and your time, man. And I got more to get back to. So for myself and Jason, we're out of here. See you guys.